Hey everyone, I'm Brett, and welcome to Nightwood Guns. Today we are looking at a classic mouse gun, the Beretta 950BS Jetfire EL in 25 ACP. In this video, we're gonna do an overview of what the 950BS Jetfire even is, its features, its uses, its practicality, and its negatives, and even its pros. This little guy is discontinued and has been for quite some time, so we'll talk about why it was discontinued as well. I did a short on this Beretta Jetfire that ended up getting over 1 million views, which is insane. So I figured with that kind of attention, I just had to do a full video on this. In that short, I had a saguaro cactus in the background, and I kind of pointed the gun in the general direction of the cactus, and everyone was like, oh my god, don't shoot that cactus, you'll get arrested. Well, I was finally sick of hearing the tens of thousands of comments on shooting the cactus, and in this video, I blasted a cactus with this thing, so be sure to stay tuned to see that. Before we hop into the review and the overview of this classy little pistol, if you'd like to support the channel because you enjoyed the video, the links in the description below are the place to be. That's where you can find my Patreon if you would like to directly support the channel. And of course, if you're looking for something to read, I have my 2 awesome action-packed short novels that you can buy on Amazon. I'd appreciate if you left reviews for them when you're done reading. And of course, be sure to leave a comment down below if you have any questions or observations about the gun or the video, and if you can't think of anything, just popping an emoji down there really helps out the channel. With that out of the way, let's hop into the 950BS Jetfire in 25 ACP. So first of all, we gotta talk about the most obvious thing, the gold trim all over this gun. So this is the EL model, and EL is basically an Italian abbreviation for extra fancy. On the 950BS, that looks like gold inlay and scrolling along with gold accents, the hammer, the trigger, the barrel tip lever, along with pins, the magazine base plate, and the magazine release. And of course, my favorite feature, the gold Beretta logo on the top of the gun. Now this EL model is a later model made probably sometime in the early 90s because the older ones had additional scrolling that went further across the slide, and they came with wood grips. So this one came with the plastic grips and less scrolling, more of a modern, streamlined, extra fancy version. So this little pistol is now a defunct and impractical concealed carry firearm that is just from another era of concealed carry. This 100% should have been discontinued, and we'll go over why. So while this gun can still be used practically and effectively in a defensive situation, it borderlines on novelty nowadays. But much like other novelty guns like the Desert Eagle, you hate to see something like that discontinued. If the Desert Eagle was ever discontinued, would it practically impact anybody? No. But it's nice knowing that a classic like that is still being manufactured. It's heartwarming. While this gun actually has some surprisingly positive features as a defensive little gun, we have to talk about the negatives, and one of the rare cases where I'm going to talk about negatives first. So first of all, we can't ignore it. We have to talk about the caliber 25 ACP. It is a little pissant round, but make no mistakes, it is still very lethal. Now this model of gun, the 950BS, was made in the Jetfire 25 ACP and the Minx in 22 short. And between those two, the 25 ACP is probably the way to go because it has a tiny bit more juice than a 22 short, and it's a center fire cartridge, which means it's going to ignite more reliably. But the gun that's still in production is going to be the 21A Bobcat that you can see is actually quite a bit bigger because it has to handle those longer 22 long rifle cartridges versus 25 ACP and 22 short that can fit in the Jetfire. Now, while this is best used as a backup gun in a front pocket or a jacket pocket, you can still carry it as a primary, but unfortunately, if you're going to carry it as a primary, you're going to have to get a second Jetfire as well, which can be difficult to find because if you carry 2 25 ACPs, that equals 50 caliber. So with 18 rounds of 25 ACP, it's basically like having 9 rounds of 50 cal in your pockets. So even though this is chambered in one of the least effective cartridges in history, it is still very lethal, and like I said, you got 2 of them, you're pretty much good to go. So a blessing and a curse to this gun is it is single action only, just like a 1911. The blessing of that is that with its single action trigger, it is very light, crisp, and easy to shoot very accurately. And since it is single action only, there are 2 ways that you can carry this. You can decock it and carry it like this, so when you pull it out and need to use it, you need to cock the hammer before you can fire it. Or you can carry it cocked and locked with the world's tiniest safety. Now, neither one of those is particularly a great way to carry a defensive firearm, especially when the safety is so tiny that you have to break your full firing grip to turn it off, or it's easy to miss. And of course, worst case scenario, it's easy to get bumped off in your pocket, and then you have this light 4-pound single action trigger pull with no travel, ready to go off in your pocket. Now, you never want to carry it at the half cock position, because if you drop it, it could break that safety catch and actually touch off a round. So you want to carry it fully decocked, because it does have an inertia firing pin block system in there, so if you drop it, it won't go off. So just know with this little guy, you're getting that awesome single action trigger, but when you pull it out, you gotta cock it first. Now, they did give you this big spurred hammer here with a light hammer spring in it to make it easy to cock quickly, but of course, along with that, it's something to snag. And the last thing you want is to pull out your little 25 ACP pistol in self-defense and have it snag on your pocket. You can't even get it out. Speaking of the hammer, one of the problems with this is a lot of people claim that they get slide bite with this little guy because it's so tiny, and when you grip it, you might get raked by the slide a little bit on the way back. But what I found is the bigger problem is getting hammer bite from this. So you can see the way that I'm holding it. If you cock the hammer, it can actually pinch the skin of the web of your hand in between the beaver tail and the hammer. And since this is semi-auto, when you're firing it, that slide is coming back, cocking that hammer, so it's pinching the web of your hand every time. And you can even see from my time out there, I got a little bit of a blood blister there on my left hand. Speaking of shooting it with your left hand, the magazine release is located on the bottom left-hand side of the grip. So if you are a lefty or you're dual wielding because you're carrying it as a primary, you can actually unseat the magazine by gripping the gun with your left hand, because it can bump that magazine release. Speaking of that magazine release, there's gonna be no speed reloading with this thing because it's hard to hit that magazine release. Then you gotta fish out a tiny little magazine, get it in that tiny little magazine well, push it in there, and then you're gonna have to rack it. And of course, that's a great reason to carry 2 of them. That way, when your first one goes dry, you can just New York reload into the second one. And if you're going to do that with models like this, make sure you're carrying the standard model first, because it feels much better to yeet this one than to yeet the gold one. Another little negative on this pistol is it kind of shoots itself to death. If you put like 100 rounds through this thing, all of the pins and screws just start to back out. I would imagine if you put like 500 rounds through this in one sitting, the gun would just fall apart in your hands. So after you practice with this thing a little bit, you gotta make sure to go in and push all the pins and tighten the screws down. Speaking of putting a lot of rounds through these things, if you do, and this barrel gets dirty, you will start having malfunctions. The reason for that is the 950BS is actually a blowback operated design. What that means is this gun has no extractor. So this is a safety issue too. If you're going to unload this gun, if you take the magazine out and you rack the slide like any other gun to clear it, the round's not gonna come out of there. The gun relies on the expansion of gases and the explosion to push the shell casing out of the chamber to then load a new round in. There's no extractor. Because of that, when the barrel gets dirty and you fire the round and the brass expands and then needs to be pushed out by the gases, the carbon buildup in the barrel can actually catch the brass casing and not eject it all the way. So if you want to keep this thing running, you have to keep a bore brush with you and run it through there maybe every 150 rounds to make sure it keeps running. Only carry these guns clean. Now, my final issue with the 950BS is it is tiny, but it is a thick boy. Now, when this gun first came out, it was just the 950 and it was slimmer and it did not have a manual safety. The next revision that came out was the 950B, which beefed it up and made it a lot thicker. And then of course the 950BS added the safety to it. Now, the fact that it's thicker obviously beefs it up so it has a longer lifespan, and it also fills the hand a lot better to make this a very shootable little package. But of course, that could lead to a pretty big bulge in your skinny jeans pocket. So with all of these negative features, it's no wonder Beretta discontinued this cool little gun, because when you look at the competition on the market, like the Ruger LCP, this is the Zombie Slayer model, look out. DA's gonna have a field day with that. But the LCP is practically the same size, lighter weight, definitely thinner, and chambered in a far more potent 380 ACP compared to the 25. Not to mention, there's no cocking of hammers or safeties, it is double action only, and honestly the trigger's not that bad. It would honestly be a foolish decision to select something like this over something like this. Not to mention, if you go up another size, we have the P365 size category, chambered in full 9mm. So if you're gonna be carrying inside the waistband or you have big old cargo pockets, why wouldn't you carry this? Rest in peace, little Jetfire. We'll remember you as you were. Now, despite all of those problems, this gun is still sought after and remembered very fondly because it does have a lot of positive features that we all remember. They just don't make them like they used to. First of all, this thing is honestly impressively well built, well put together. The tolerances are right on, and it really feels like quality craftsmanship, something of the past. Everything nowadays just feels kind of loose, rattly, and junky, even though, yeah, it works, but there's kind of a loss of pride of ownership over something like this. This was actually my first handgun that I ever owned. My dad got this for me when I was like 13 years old. So this has had a lot of 25 ACP through it throughout the years, and it's still like brand new. It's definitely a tiny little workhorse. Now the 32 ACP Tomcats are a different story. The frames on those crack all the time. They can't handle the 32 ACP, but the smaller stuff, man, they can handle it for a lifetime. And this still absolutely has a practical use. Sometimes I will throw this little guy in a jacket pocket just as a backup. But why would I throw this in my pocket over something like this? So first of all, even though I went over the negatives of its single action only design, because of its single action only design, it's very short and light trigger with almost no over travel. You can run this trigger really fast. So you can put out 9 rounds of 25 ACP, just boom. On top of that, with its excellent trigger and with its thicker grip that fills your hand, you can shoot this thing surprisingly accurately. Now the sights aren't much to write home about, but it does have a thin front blade on there so that you can get some surprisingly accurate hits with it. But of course, if you want to stop a threat as fast as possible with a tiny little gun like this, you're gonna have to go for some melon shots. I mean, like, not like melons, but like melon. Not only can it be run very quickly and surprisingly accurately for what it is, it's also extremely safe to carry because when the hammer is decocked, it has an inertia firing pin block system in there. It cannot go off in your pocket, period. The hammer has to be cocked before it can be fired, so you can carry it in your pocket with peace of mind knowing that it will never go off on you. Unlike something like this, where even though it has a long double action trigger pull to negate that, you probably still want to carry it in a pocket holster just to protect the trigger guard. Now another big pro of this, I'm sure you've seen me doing it throughout the video, is the tip barrel. This is a really cool feature because it allows you to load the magazine, which has a very soft spring, easy to load for people, and then you can just drop around in the chamber, close it, and you're good to go. You don't have to worry about racking the slide. The reason I like it is because it makes decocking the gun safe. You can just pop open the barrel, and let's say the hammer's cocked, you have a round in there, decock it while the barrel's tipped. Even if you drop the hammer, it can't go off. Then you just drop it, good to go. And the lever to pop the barrel is very easy to actuate, so all around, this is a very simple gun to operate. Now obviously I don't want to flag myself while the barrel's down, but while the barrel's tipped up, this gun can't go out of battery if you jam it into someone. So if things get really close and personal, you can jam this gun into someone, and this slide is just gonna keep running and keep feeding new rounds in. That's what makes this a great little up close and personal gun. Now another surprising thing about this little gun is it is very reliable. Now I know some people will struggle with like the 21A Bobcats chambered in 22 long rifle. They can be a little ammo picky, just like honestly any other 22. You have to put the quality stuff through it. Pretty much all 25 ACP is good to run in this thing. It's surprising. As long as you keep that barrel clean every 150 to 200 rounds, this thing runs. You also have to make sure that you have a good magazine. Sometimes the magazine springs can wear out and cause problems, but luckily these magazines are still pretty obtainable despite the guns not being so. So surprisingly, this is a reliable, accurate, and fast shooting little pocket rocket that I think could still find a place out there today. Beretta, I'd love if you brought this thing back and just extended the beaver tail out a bit, and then I could just carry 2 of these every day. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. Get ready to flame me because I shot a saguaro cactus with this gun after y'all told me not to. All million of you didn't want me to shoot that cactus. Well, I did it, and here it is. Guys, I was never going to shoot that cactus. I love nature. I would never want to harm or damage it. I didn't shoot it in the short. We have to stop assuming the worst of everybody. I did not shoot the cactus, nor will I ever. Now, I'd like y'all to do a favor for me in this video. Number one, leave a comment down below. Tell me if you've ever shot a Jetfire, or if you'd ever like to get one, or just drop me an emoji if you're short on time. And then after that, go to Beretta's social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube channel, I don't care. And let's hit them with a mass calling to bring back the Beretta Jetfire 25 ACP, the coolest little pocket pistol ever made, because I think that these things still have a fun little place. In a worst case scenario, just for collecting and shooting for fun, maybe it will even bring back 25 ACP ammo. These are just affordable, dependable little guns, and I miss them. They're fun to shoot. I had a blast shooting this video. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this video on the Pimped-Out Pocket Pistol from Beretta, the 950 BS Jetfire EL. If you want to see more videos like this and you forgot to subscribe along our journey in this video, now is your chance to do so. Looking forward to seeing your emojis and comments down below. Other than that, it was great seeing you guys. Thank you so much to my patrons for keeping this channel going. And I'll see you in the next video. I'm Brett, and this was Nightwood Guns. Nightwood out.